If someone had told me a month ago that I'd end up here, in this rotting boarding house, alone in the dead of night, I would have laughed. But it all started too banally, an offer to earn some extra cash. An old acquaintance asked me to help gather some documents in an abandoned building before they demolished it. They say it used to be a shelter for troubled teenagers, then a holiday home, then a psychiatric clinic, all in a circle until the walls crumbled and the stairs rotted away. I arrived in the evening. From the outside, the building looked like it had long wanted to sink into the ground. Stone walls, cracks, boarded-up windows, doors with faded numbers. Above the entrance hung a tattered sign, Boarding House Dawn. A funny name for this gloom. I opened the door. The hinges squealed so loudly that the echo spread through every floor. Inside, it smelled of damp wood, mold, and something else, rotting rags. I had the feeling that someone was still here, silently watching me through the cracks in the boards. I climbed to the second floor. Twilight was already seeping into the corridors. I decided to check everything quickly, grab the documents, take a few photos for the report. Everything was fine until I found that room. Library. A small sign on the door with peeling letters, reading room. Inside, piles of dust, rows of shelves, books, books, books. I pulled out my flashlight. The beam of light caught dead bookshelves, rickety chairs, and scraps of old posters. I don't know what made me open the bottom drawer under the shelf. It was almost invisible, buried under stacks of old brochures. But I pulled it out and saw a black, plain school notebook. Smooth cover, bent corner, pages yellowed with age. I sat right there on the dusty floor, opened it. On the first page was only one word, my name, written dozens of times in different handwritings with different pens. I flipped through. The pages were filled to the very end, tiny, dense letters, my name over and over again. A chill ran down my spine. I scoffed and said out loud, "What a joke." But the lump was already stuck in my throat. I heard a whisper. Not loud, not around me, inside my head, as if someone had looked straight under my skull. "You've always been here." I gasped, slammed the notebook shut, but my ears rang. Someone kept mumbling. Words tangled, strange names, strange dates, voices of children and old people, men and women. I bolted out of the library. The corridor stretched endlessly like an intestine. My footsteps echoed dully. Cold air seeped from under the doors. I glanced at each number, all boarded up, but it felt like someone was moving behind the plywood, scraping with their nails. I went back to the car. Empty. Doors locked. Keys in my pocket, but it wouldn't start. The battery was dead. My phone had no signal. The rain began, heavy, like a bucket turned over. Inside the boarding house, it was at least dry. I went back, again, to the library. The notebook lay on the floor, open. On that page, new writing. Not my name. Other words. Listen to us. Don't close. The whisper in my head grew louder. I pressed my palms to my ears, useless. Someone was telling how they died. Someone swore they would come back. Someone rasped right at my throat. I opened the notebook again, and suddenly the words began to flow. The ink squirmed, the letters grew, formed into faces. I saw the eyes of people I'd never known. Old women, children with empty sockets, old men with torn mouths. Their lips moved. "We are all yours. open us all. I slammed the notebook shut, clutched it under my arm. The noise in my head grew quieter, just a faint hum like a distant train. I stepped into the corridor and saw a silhouette. Human, but too tall, its head almost touching the ceiling. I froze, unable to move. The flashlight flickered. The silhouette raised its hand and pointed at me. "Bring us home," it whispered without a mouth. I bolted down the stairs. The boards cracked underfoot. Doors slammed. Drafts chased alien footsteps down the corridors. I locked myself in one of the rooms, small, an old patient's room. Bare walls, an old bed, a dirty window. I sat on the floor, laid the notebook before me. If I burn it, the thought flashed and died. I felt it. It wouldn't burn. The paper was cold, damp, like skin. The whisper returned, like hundreds of mouths speaking from every wall. I closed my eyes and fell somewhere into inky darkness. I dreamed of endless corridors, doors opening themselves. Behind each one, a room full of faceless people. They sat on the floor, quietly repeating, "We wrote you. We wrote us all." I saw myself from the side. The notebook in my hands was overflowing with names, but instead of ink, blood, fresh, warm. I traced my finger along the lines, and each name echoed inside me. I woke up to knocking. Someone was banging on the door, first dully, then harder, then with nails scratch, scratch, scratch. I crawled to the door, pressed my ear against it. On the other side, a whisper. "Open up. Bring us back." "Who are you?" I breathed. "You know us. You're the last one. Write more. More." I recoiled, covered my ears. The voices didn't go away. They flowed through my veins, slid under my skin, stirred beneath my skull. I opened the notebook again. The pages were blank, white like a shroud. Suddenly, letters began to appear. My hands grabbed a rusty pencil I'd found on the floor. A name, another name, a stranger's, another one. More. The more I wrote, the quieter it got inside. The voices went into the paper. The pages darkened with new lines. "You are our scribe," someone said quietly. "You will let us live on." When the pages ran out, I realized there was nothing left to fill the emptiness. The voices hissed, angrier, louder. The walls trembled. Someone banged on the door so hard that the rusty hinges shrieked. I rushed to the window, opened the satch. Rain pelted my face with icy needles. Below, a black yard overgrown with wet bushes. I could jump. But what would change? With us. Only with us. Forever. I looked at the notebook. It was breathing. Yes, breathing like it was alive. The pages stirred as if snakes were writhing inside. I pressed it to my chest. My heart beat in sync with its pulse. "You are ours." I knew, even if I left here, it would be inside me. The voices, the names, the memories of strangers, they had already taken root. And when they find me, in a month, a year, or never, someone else will open this notebook, and it will all start again.